Hey guys, Quiv the Lazy Geek here, and today we're going to talk more about some automated processing. So last time I presented scripts that have been written by Darkarchon for PixInsight, which those scripts are really amazing, and I highly recommend them. If you haven't watched that video and you have PixInsight, or you're thinking about getting PixInsight, you really want to check them out. I'm leaving a link to that video above. Now, those scripts have since that video been enhanced already quite a lot. There's been a new script that has been added, which is an easy live stack, where it will monitor a folder where you're taking your images for the night, and it will present you with a calibrated live stack of those images in PixInsight, which is amazing because you can really see the result work its way as it goes. So it's like, I love that. So it's lots of good stuff there. And there is another script that I had heard about, and that one is not free, and that one is supposed to be doing like almost all of the work for you. And this is called the PixInsight AutoScript. And I think it's made by a British guy called Paul. I'm not completely sure, but at least his domain name is British, from the United Kingdom. And it costs £5 for that script package. And I was really curious about it because it's supposed to really help, in particular for narrowband combinations using the Hubble palette or a bicolor palette, which is I think called the Cygnus Loop palette. And so I was curious, and I spent those £5 to see whether it would be worth it for me. So if you look at my screen right now, I have the web page of that script on the screen. I will be leaving a link in the description down below if you are interested in buying the script afterwards. But to be very clear, I was quite, first, RGB palette. It's supposed to be palette, like the French word for palette, which is what you use when you're painting, kind of thing. But whatever. With that out of the way, I was quite skeptical about it because a lot of the images, to my eyes, look over-processed, and then I'm really an expert in over-processed images because I tend to do that as well. Like this is like, it looks really over-processed. The elephant trunk looks good. This looks over-processed. So I'm like, is this really gonna work? And you can see it's a whole suite of tools, the AutoScript as well as a 3D creator, like when you see those 3D images on Facebook, or when you can cross-eye or eyes to the distance, parallel eyes kind of 3D creation. I watched a few of the videos and I was still less convinced, because when you look at this video, for example, he does a lot of messing around with curves and color curves, which is exactly what I want to avoid when doing Google Palette. So not Google Palette, what am I saying? When doing Hubble Palette. Oh my gosh, the Google telescope. Oh, maybe that's gonna happen in the future. Anyway, we're having, so it's like, yeah, I was like a bit like, skeptical, let's say, about it. But heck, it's only £5. I'm gonna try it out. I'm gonna make a video out of it. It might be useful for you guys to know about this script and to know what my impressions of it are. So I was like, yeah, let's try it. And like, simple and amazing, just a few clicks and watch. This helped me process narrowband images quickly and without stress. That sounds pretty good. Like, some feedback, easy to use, and options let me create images quickly. Noise reduction and star reductions helps my images show the nebula. Cool. Well, let's try it. And so without further ado, let's get inside PixInsight. And so I am going to use two targets, and I made sure that I put myself in the shoes of someone who would be using that script, meaning someone who is either outstandingly lazy, welcome, or someone who is a beginner in astrophotography and doesn't want to deal with the processing side of things, which is something I really understand. And so I took some old narrowband images that I have taken 3 and 4 years ago, using my material at the time, which was a 1600 cool, which I still own and still love. An Ioptron Sky Guider Pro, which is an amazing star tracker. The only reason I sold it is because I wanted a fully motorized go-to mount to have automatic centering, but otherwise I loved the Sky Guider Pro. I used Badr 7 nanometers narrowband filters, which were really high quality. I switched to Optolong 5 nanometers filters afterwards. If I remember correctly, they were 5 nanometers, and they gave me less good results than my Badr 7 nanometers. I got them measured by an actual like spectral scientist or whatever, the people who have the equipment to measure that, and the bandpass transmission was something like 55%, which, you know, is not ideal. Let's say it did not perform to specs. I did not get the Badr filters checked, but they performed better than what I got from Optolong afterwards. So that's, you know, one thing. Those filters were really high quality. And I also used a bit my SXD2 mount from Vixen. And Vixen mounts, they're very reliable. I mean, all of the Vixen mounts I've had were amazing quality. Build quality is really good. And there's, as far as I can tell, there's very little to no mount lottery with those. So you get what you pay for, which is awesome. So I use this equipment for those images. And I'll be making sure to put links below if you're interested in buying any of those pieces of gear that I used to capture those images. My main telescope was a 200mm f2.8 Canon lens. So not quite astrophotography equipment, but you can tell that I was trying to really keep my expenses low, especially the Vixen mounts. I know they're expensive in the US. They're not as expensive in Japan, and I had a way to get a cheaper one. So it was still, I had much cheaper equipment than what I had now. So, you know, trying to get into the shoes. Now we have two images. One is the Heart Nebula in narrowband, and the other is the area around the Sadr star, which is in the Cygnus constellation, and both with the equipment that I just mentioned. The Cygnus loop one is actually, it's not Cygnus loop, the Sadr area is actually, from my notes at the time, I find it hard to believe, but apparently it's the case. It's only 40 minutes of exposure per narrowband filter. So that's not a lot. That's just 2 hours of data in total. And the Heart Nebula is actually apparently 10 hours of exposure, except that I got much worse signal to noise ratio. So I'm not sure exactly why the Heart Nebula is so bad, but the Sadr region is so good. It could be that my weather conditions at the time, I had very poor transparency for the Heart Nebula. That could be an explanation, or maybe it was very low in the sky when I was imaging it. But still, they're like, you know, average images. They're not super clean data. They're data that is usable, and so that's what I wanted to use with these AutoScripts. So before we run the AutoScripts, I want to show you what I obtained by doing manual processing of those images. I still did use Darkarchon's scripts for this, but I did all of the color manipulation, the dynamic background extraction, all of this kind of stuff manually. So this is what I achieved on the Sadr area using the Hubble palette. As much as I could, and this is what I achieved using Forax's palette. Forax is a user in the Nina Discord who has an amazing method to do narrowband combination, which I really like. I like the color that it gives, and it gives much less work to do after the combination. So I'm really happy about his work, and you can find it in a video that I did above where I processed the Seagull Nebula with his technique. I highly recommend you go and have a look if you're not aware of this particular method. Now this is the Sadr area, so this is what I obtained like manually, and that took me roughly 1 hour of processing time with my experience. And then we have the Heart Nebula, and I used only Forax's palette because I was too lazy to do the Hubble palette for this one. And that's maybe 30 minutes of processing time in total. And here we are. We have those two images. So now let's try to see what happens with the AutoScript. So how I bought it is I bought via PayPal using the website, and then a few hours later I got an email from the creator, Paul, with a link, a download link, as well as the link to a video on how to install the scripts. So his video to install the scripts is very well done. It's like 1 minute long, so I will not go into the details of the installation. If you wish to buy it, you'll be able to get those details from Paul himself. And remember, I was being quite skeptical about the scripts, so we're going to see how it looks like. Now, one of the things to note is that for all of those images, you can see they're not aligned. I can see a bit of the Crescent Nebula here, but in the O3 image, it's at the top left. So those images are not aligned to each other. So that's one thing to, when I do it manually, I'll have to do first a star alignment, dynamic background extraction. Same for the heart. You can see I had a lot of rotation between the images. So, that's something to keep in mind as well. And so there's a lot of additional work that needs to be done, and this is where the script from Paul really shines, in my opinion. So let's have a look. Script, AutoScript, and we have the simple AutoScript align and stacking. This is not something I can recommend because it doesn't use any calibration frames. So if you have already calibrated your images and you want to stack them, well, you can use this if you like. Otherwise, really, I just recommend using the weighted batch pre-processing script in PixInsight. So I would never really use this. So your mileage may vary. But then once you've stacked your images, this is where the merge images and noise reduction comes into play. So immediately it will actually run through all of the images, and it tries to find the correct ones for H-alpha, S2, and O3, at least for narrowband images. I don't have any raw files for LRGB imaging that I did in the past, so I couldn't use LRGB. But you can see it went through the images. It kind of does stuff to them. I don't think it changes them, but it touches them a little bit. And then we have the red, our S2 image. It didn't find the H-alpha image properly because the name was a bit different. And then we have the blue, our O3 image. And then, wait a second. It's actually looking at all of the images throughout PixInsight, so it's actually getting confused between all of the images that I have open in both panes. So that's fine. In my initial tests, when I had only one target open at the time, it was actually pretty good at identifying those filters. So anyway, I'm going to select the S2 for red, the H-alpha for green, and the O3 for blue, and this will be for my Sadr area image. And then we're going to say that we want the narrowband Hubble palette, and there's fix overexposed areas, which I haven't used, the color, local histogram to enhance colors, but if the images are noisy, turn off, so I didn't use them. And then there's background glow extraction, which seems from the documentation from his videos that it will apply an automated background extraction 3 times on each image. Okay, and there's a crop edge size here, which I'm going to keep to default right now. And then we have the noise reduction amount per layer. And I know that my H-alpha layer is typically the one with the least noise, so I'm probably going to reduce that a little bit. But otherwise, I don't change too much, and I just press OK, and we're going to see what that does. So the first thing that really annoys me with the script is that it will create registered versions of your images, which is fine. But it will also close the pre-registration images, which I don't like because I really don't want it to close my images, without any warning. So to me, that's a really bad thing about this script. Of course, it's a script, and the source code is available within the script itself. So this is something that I, as someone who understands how the script can work, can change easily. But otherwise, it's meh, kind of thing. So you can see now the script is still working. It's creating tons of little intermediate images until it will get to the final image. So we're going to wait. And it is done. It is done. So it leaves a lot of those icons there, which we can, remove fairly easily, which, is nice. I can, or I can just move them around, to just ignore that they exist. It remains with 2 images, and I believe one has been noise reduced and the other hasn't, maybe something like that. I'm not completely sure, to be honest, but I'll take the one with the higher number. And this is what we can work from. And at first glance, it doesn't look too bad. And I do believe that it's basically using it's great that it registered automatically. It did the noise reduction automatically with masks. It did the combination automatically, and it did an SCNR, so removing the green automatically. I think that's really pretty positive, especially for beginners. Then we can go into the AutoScript and we can do fine-tuning for noise, palettes, and star reduction. And I could say like, okay, there's no change to the palette. We don't seem to have a lot of background glow, so I will not remove it. I may want to do like noise level low or none for the moment because it didn't look super noisy to me. And we can do a little bit of star reduction. Color smoothing doesn't seem to be quite useful, but we could try to sharpen the image to get better like dark nebula, dark areas images. And we can press OK, and it's going to do the work, which again, I think it's quite positive that for the moment my impressions are actually pretty positive, except that there's a lack of, like, I would wish a little bit more flexibility as to how much of green to remove from the image. I'm not sure exactly what the logic is for there in particular. And now we're going to see what it does for the star reduction and for the sharpening. But it is applying those masks automatically, which again, I think is a really good thing, especially like you're a beginner, you don't really know what you're doing. So this is nice. And we have the image has been modified, and yes, the stars do seem to be smaller, which is pretty neat. And then I can keep going and we can color enhance the object. So go step by step. So color enhancing the object, and it says like we'll click on the circle here to open the preview image. We click on S for saturation to adjust the curve, and then on the square to apply it to the targets. Again, I think that's pretty neat. So we can see the preview here. I actually like what this is doing by default. The image, the colors look decent. They're not like as punchy as the colors that I have in my final processed image, and the blues are a bit lacking, but it's pretty neat. Like, could I try to change the blue? No, that's I don't like messing with curves, but I can adjust the curve. Say like I want a bit more saturations as per the instructions if I don't know really what I'm doing. And you can see he's also by default having a luminance kind of gamma enhancement in there, and we can just do exactly as he said and click on the square, and then there we are. We have oops, I applied it to the wrong image, so I'm going to do that again with the proper image because I clicked on the wrong image. So I'm going to script, AutoScript, color enhance object, and now we're going to click again on the preview. We have this working well. I'm going to click on target. And now we can see if I remove the mask that it does look quite decent with those colors. If I did it, now I've removed the mask, so I don't want to use that process anymore, but I could do a second round if I wanted to, like, color enhance the object again. And open a preview, but this time I want to be a bit less aggressive with the saturation, so I can just adjust this curve like this. So it's not badly done at all. I think this is actually pretty good for beginners as far as I'm concerned. Now I do see that the background is quite magenta-ish, so I am going to see like the next step, and which would be, AutoScript, and we have the color enhance background. So let's try that. And again, we have the same instruction set. We can click on preview and click again to see like, yeah, that actually kills the background pretty well. I like this. This is not badly done at all. And I mean, I could simply, you know, apply it as is, and it looks like it will be working pretty well. So, you know, I had really like bad, you know, pre-impressions about it without having tried the script on, but it's quite decent actually. So this is what we're getting, and we could keep going through the steps. There's like magenta saturation removal. I don't see a lot of magenta. Oh, it looks like it's using a color mask type of thing, which is not something I would use. Let's see what the result gives us. Show mask before, after. Doesn't seem to do much, at least on this image. But this is, you know, something like typically I would just invert the image, use SCNR on the inverted image. But this is again making it quite easy. Red saturation, I don't have a lot of red. This is not an RGB palette. Star saturation and light reduction. Let's try this. Okay, let's look at the preview. Yeah, it does diminish the stars. That works for me. Apply to target. And there we are. I could reduce the stars even more if I wanted to, but I think we have a good compromise right now. And, you know, it is, you know, working pretty well. What do we have next? Local enhanced detail. Okay, so this does apparently a local histogram equalization, which is good. I'm not sure exactly what parameters this will be. But, you know, if it works well, if it's well built, it could be working, you know, it could be very, very beneficial. And here it is done. So let's see the before after, and it is indeed more punchy. This works well too. I was really skeptical about this script, and you know, it will not give you the best results that you could get, and it might be a hindrance actually for beginners if you're trying to learn what's behind the script. But it could be great, like, you know, for beginners to actually want to try more the script. And I can tell that to me some of those script steps might actually be good to apply from time to time to use on my own in my own processing workflow. So, you know, why not? Okay, let's try the wave enhanced detail. I assume it will be wavelets. Yes. Oh, no, thank you. No. That you would need to mask out. Oh, no. The stars are much too visible. So that's probably the reason why the images on the website looked so violent to my sensitivity. Oh, no, this is a horrible step. Do not use this. Okay, wave enhanced detail. This is not something I'm going to use. Darkness enhanced detail. That's just the dark structure enhanced. Okay, so this is a pre-existing script by someone else that he just links to. Fair enough. I think it's included by default in PixInsight. But yeah, if you don't know that it exists, you know, you wouldn't be using it. So we're going to say, okay. And I think actually with that parameter it's going to be a bit too strong, but you know, we'll see. Typically I put it down to from 0.4 to 0.3. Otherwise I feel it's a bit too like the dark area has become too dark. But actually, it seems to have worked decently well. And using just the parameters on the script, this would be my final image. So this is my final image with the script, my final image in the Hubble palette, you know, with my own processing methods, and the final image with Firaxis palettes. So yeah, I mean, I think, you know, it kind of works. I think it's good. It's a good first step. I think a lot of the script, especially the first step of the script, the combination is really smart about the registration of the images. So I have positive impressions about that. It will not give you the best result possible. You'll still need to have and go into the curves and stuff like that, and to learn what you're doing to get the punchiest images you can, but it still gives you results. So I'm gonna give a go to the Heart Nebula as well, and I'll show you the results as well, and then we can draw some conclusions for this script. Okay, and I think the Heart Nebula will be a much more difficult object, because you can see that it has much lower noise, signal-to-noise ratio. My own processing, I found it hard because of that low signal-to-noise. and the images are not well aligned, or maybe they are aligned, but they will need to be quite a bit of cropping. So I'm going to go into AutoScript, and same as before, we're going to merge the images along with star reduction. So let's see what that will give us. Okay, it does a lot of stuff. I don't like that it's applying STF to the images without removing the STF. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what it's doing all over the place here, but the red image will be for me the S2 here. The green image will be drizzle integration H alpha, and the blue image will be Heart 03. You can tell that I did not have my process well built at the time that I was taking this. We're going to use a narrowband Hubble palette again. I'm going to keep, well, my H alpha, yeah, we're going to maybe increase the noise reduction to 1 on, you know, those two, maybe H alpha to 0.5 and the light layer to 0.4, because we want to be aggressive, and we're going to, you know, follow what the script says. But, you know, let's try this and see how well it works. I might have needed to actually adjust the crop parameter so we could actually get the image crop, but I think at this stage a dynamic crop will simply work better post combination of the images. So let's see what that gives us. And the result is actually very interesting. I think the non-cropped images have thrown it off. So it seems to be using a lot of statistics to do the Hubble palette combination. So I'm actually going to close all of this because it did not work well for this particular image. And I will need to reload the images because it has closed the initial images that I fed it when it did the process, which I really don't like. That's really something that annoys me. So let me reopen the images. And this time, because really the images are not well, you know, aligned, I'm going to do a proper dynamic crop before I launch the script. So it's very interesting though, because it seems that the script is indeed, you know, using statistics from the image. So it is really trying to be smart. I think there's a lot of work that went into building this script, and that's really something I respect. So let's see. Yes, that works for the heart. We're gonna validate that, and we're gonna try again the script, see what it gives us. And this is the result, which, you know, doesn't look too bad at all. There's not a lot of color, but maybe the color enhance can work. So I'll just be, you know, following the same steps, and, you know, I'll be getting back to you once I'm all done. So actually, when doing the Heart Nebula here, something that I noticed that was not as obvious in the Sadr area was the magenta removal makes the image very, like, it loses a lot of saturation in the blue. So to give you an idea, this is like before the magenta removal. Actually going to make a copy of that image, and this is after the magenta removal. And look what happened to the blue that was punchy before the magenta removal, that is here, is now not punchy at all anymore. And so I don't really like the magenta removal that it does. So what I would do instead, and that's something that could be scripted as well, is simply invert the image, do an SCNR with a high strength on the image that's inverted, and then re-invert it. And that works much better, and it preserves the blue much better than what I see the script doing. So that's kind of a little weakness there. And yeah, I'm going to use this image to keep going forward. But I'm almost, you know, at the end of that particular script, because I'm just going to go to do the local histogram equalization. And I think this was pretty much like the last step that I thought was, along with the dark structure enhance. And those are the two last steps that I think are useful for the script. And here is my final heart image, which, you know, is decent, especially because of the low quality of the data. I mean, my own manual processing didn't do much better. So yeah, I think, it's a valid script. It has its use cases, plus you can use each of the independent steps like on their own as well as part of your own processing workflow. Now I want to give a little bit of information about also the 3D creator thing. I personally hate it. The way that it works is that it seems to use the luminance of the image as a signal for the 3D depth. So the brighter it is, the closer it is to you. The darker it is, the further away it is to you, and I just don't like how it looks. So to me, that's pretty bad. But otherwise, I do believe like this script is very interesting. It does a lot of good things, and it can make people entering the hobby really it give them a much easier access to narrowband processing, which is really hard and which is needed for people in white zones and red zones, and that's like most of us, right? So that's like my impressions. I was very skeptical at first. I still think it's not like, the end all that will make everything easier, but I am actually quite impressed by how much work, how much thought went into it, and how decent the final images can look. Some of the tools I'm not too convinced with, like the 3D creation to me is terrible, and I feel bad saying so, but no, it does not work for me, and no. And the some of the tools seem to be a bit like, and some of them are simply reusing another person's script, like the darkness enhanced detail part of things. But otherwise, it's well organized. It gives you a real workflow to work through, and I think it can leave beginners wanting more, and I think that's a good thing. So yeah, overall, pretty decent, pretty good. And is it worth 5 quids? Yeah, for a beginner, yeah, it totally is. I think it's not going to give you the best results possible, but gives you a really good first foundation to work upon. And for that, I really like it. Okay, and that was it. So we used this script on some very noisy images I had, and it did give some pretty decent results as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, I would tend to say it may be worth it if you're looking for ways to quickly, process images. You don't have that much time. You're busy at work, busy at home, and you want to quickly get images, or you're a beginner, you don't want to go into details. I think it's made for you, and it works much better than I expected it to, honestly, especially from my point of view, where I am terrible at narrowband combination. So yeah, I mean, if you think this looks interesting to you, absolutely, go for it. And I think it can provide good tools in general, even as part of someone's workflow. So that's it for this video. I hope it was useful. If you like this video, if it was useful, please feel free to leave please feel free to leave a like down below. Also, if you are not subscribed to this channel and you like this type of content, I talk about processing, I talk about tips and tricks about the equipment, I talk about technical stuff, I do gear reviews, all in astrophotography and astronomy related topics. So if that sounds like it could be interesting to you, feel free to go down below, click on subscribe, click on the little notification bell icon if you want to be notified when I upload a new video. And otherwise, also, if you have any remarks or comments, please go down in the comments, let me know about it. And with that, as usual, thank you so much for watching. Whenever you can, don't forget to look up at the stars, and I'll see you next time.